Okay, welcome everybody tonight to my speech over red meat and why it's good for you. So let's just face facts. America is overweight, and what does everybody always tell you? Oh, you got to do more diet and exercise, right? You need to increase those veggies. Ironically enough, though, according to American Society for Clinical Nutrition, published a journal in 2018 titled "A Mediterranean-Style Eating Pattern with Lean, Unprocessed Red Meat." Has cardiometabolic benefits for adults who are overweight or obese in randomized trial. I know it's a long title, but just bear with me. What they found in this study is that processed, unprocessed red meat actually reduced the risk of cardiovascular disease. So the stigma that red meat's terrible for you is what we're going to try to alleviate in this speech today. So today we will cover what is red meat, why it's important to have in your diet, and why eating it in moderation is so important to having a healthy lifestyle. So let's look at red meat. What is red meat? Well, red meat can be classified as animal protein that is typically raw or red when raw. So this will include meats such as beef, pork, lamb, venison, and many other meats that are out there. And so you might be asking yourself, well, where's the chicken and the fish? And while these are sources of animal protein, these are what they consider white meats because whenever they're cooked, they're typically white in color. So now that we know what red meat is, let's talk about why it's important to eat. So red meat is healthy for you. I don't care what anybody says. Red meat is healthy for you. A journal published in 2016 by the United States Elsevier titled "Soluble Arabinoxolin Enhances Large Intestinal Microbial Health in Pigs Fed a Red Meat Diet." Again, a no long title. But basically, what they did in this study is that they fed pigs a very red meat rich diet and found that it actually increased their intestinal health or their gut health. So things such as like whenever they're talking about like, okay, well, you need to eat yogurt to have the live active bacteria. It's that type of thing. Another journal published by the England Elsevier in 2016 titled "Meat: The Balance Between Nutrition and Health" actually studied people who didn't like to eat meat and found that a lot of them have vitamin B12 deficiencies, along with a lot of other things. I'm just limited on time. But a vitamin B12 deficiency can actually increase depression, impair your vision, cause mouth ulcers, and that's just to name a few things. There's one more very ironic study that I really want to cover, and I found this very hilarious whenever I was doing my research. And it was a journal titled "Red Meat and Processed Meat Consumption Behavior of Health Professionals." And it was published in 2020 by the Cambridge University Press. And they surveyed 149 healthcare specialists who were very against eating red meat. What they found is 95% of them admitted to eating red meat in a regular diet. So, whereas they're eating red meat and they're telling their patients not to eat red meat. So, there's a lot of confusion. So, now that we know why it's important to eat red meat, let's discuss why it's important to do it in moderation. So, what happens when you're eating it in too large portions and quantity? A journal published by the Netherlands Elsevier in 2018 titled "Avoidable Colorectal Cancer Cases in Denmark" found that processed meat was the bigger culprit as to why people were being diagnosed with cancers such as colon cancer, having irritable bowel syndrome, things along those sorts. Whereas they said that the unprocessed, fresh, lean meats were actually more beneficial, or they had less of an impact in terms of causing colon cancer, but they provided actually very beneficial when matched with high fiber, high soluble fiber foods. to make sure that you're getting all the nutrients and resources that you can from the red meat. So essentially, what this is saying is red meat is red meat is good for you, but you have to understand where the meat's coming from, and you can actually tell through a lot of the speech that there's a common theme of okay, unprocessed meat is the way to go, right? Because they keep talking about how processed meat is tearing everybody's insides up. So instead of going to McDonald's and getting yourself a McDouble, it would actually be much more beneficial for you and actually give you more a more nutrient dense uh, meal if you go buy the meat from a grocery store and pair it with stuff like broccoli, spinach, turnips, radishes, things along those sort. So, in conclusion, what we've covered today is that we cover what is classified as red meat, why it's important to have it in your diet, and why moderation is so key. And that's the biggest takeaway that I want everybody to have from this speech is that moderation is the biggest thing, along with other things. It could be, with alcohol and sweets and cokes, and I mean, it could be anything, right? Just doing everything in moderation. But in terms of red meat, I think it helps dispel a lot of the negative stigma that's around red meat if you do it in moderation. So I challenge you to try to find out where the meat is being sourced from, how it's prepared, and just do your best to make sure that you're actually preparing it yourself instead of going through a fast food restaurant. Okay, thank you for your time.